Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unlock the secrets of companies that don't just succeed, they endure for generations.
So have you ever wondered how some companies, like a Disney, a 3M, a Sony, how do they manage to thrive for over a century, while so many others just kind of fade away? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're diving into Built to Last, this massive 6-year study that uncovered some really surprising truths separating the truly great companies from the ones that are merely good.
And what they've found, well, it's probably not what you're thinking. The authors surveyed hundreds of CEOs to identify this set of visionary companies, and then they pitted them against their closest competitors over their entire histories. And the results? They completely bust some of the biggest, most common myths in business.
All right, let's get right into it with the first huge myth they just shattered, the idea that every great company has to start with one single brilliant idea.
I mean, you'd think the visionary companies were the ones with that big eureka moment, right? But the research showed the exact opposite. Companies like HP kind of stumbled along for years. Sam Walton said Walmart was 20 years in the making. And get this, often it was their less successful competitors who actually started with a so-called great idea, and they still lost in the long run.
And this quote from Sam Walton just nails it. For him, the discount store itself wasn't the ultimate goal. Building a great company, that was the goal. The product was just the vehicle, you see, not the final destination.
This brings us to the book's central metaphor, and it's a brilliant one. Are you a time teller or a clock builder? Now, a time teller is a genius with a great idea. They can look at the sun and tell you the time perfectly, but when they're gone, the magic is gone. A clock builder, though, they create an organization, a clock, that can tell the time forever, long after its creator is gone.
Let me give you a great example. Think of George Westinghouse, a brilliant inventor who created the superior AC power system. He was a classic time teller. Now compare him to GE's first president, Charles Coffin. He didn't invent a single product, not one. Instead, he created the GE Research Lab, an engine for continuous innovation. See, Westinghouse's greatest creation was a product. Coffin's was the General Electric Company itself.
So how do you actually build one of these clocks? What's the blueprint? What's the secret sauce for an enduring company?
Well, it starts by rejecting what the book calls the tyranny of the OR. This is that rational but really limiting view that you always have to choose between two things that seem to be opposites. You can have change or stability. You can focus on your mission or you can make a profit.
But visionary companies, they just refuse to make those trade-offs. They embrace the genius of the and. And this isn't about finding some weak compromise in the middle. No way. They figure out how to have the best of both worlds, pursuing two extremes at the exact same time.
And this right here is the core paradox that they master. They figure out how to preserve a deeply held core ideology, keeping it absolutely fixed and stable, while simultaneously stimulating just incredible, audacious progress in everything else. That dynamic tension, that's the engine that drives them for decades.
So let's break that down. Let's start with the first half of that equation. What does it really mean to preserve the core?
So the core ideology is like the company's bedrock. It's its fundamental reason for being. And it's made up of two key parts. First, you've got core values. These are the few guiding principles the company would hold on to no matter what. And then you have the core purpose. Think of that as the organization's soul. It's a guiding star on the horizon that it's always chasing.
Now, if you look at these examples, you'll see there's no single correct set of values. Merck is very different from Disney, which is very different from Nordstrom. The key isn't what the ideology is. The key is how deeply and how authentically the company actually lives it.
This quote from David Packard just perfectly captures that idea of a core purpose. It answers the big question. If we cashed out today, what would the world lose? It's the reason the company exists beyond just making money for shareholders. For HP, it was about making a technical contribution. For Disney, it was bringing happiness to millions.
Okay, so if the core ideology is fixed, like a rock, how do these companies avoid becoming stagnant, dusty old museums? Well, they pair their fixed core with a relentless, unstoppable drive for progress.
And a primary way they do this is through a powerful mechanism the authors call a big, hairy, audacious goal, or a BHG for short. Yeah, a BHG.
And a BHG isn't some safe, incremental, boring goal. No, it's a mountain to be climbed. It's a huge, daunting challenge that gets the entire organization energized and pulling in the same direction.
A great BHAG has to be clear and it has to be compelling. The classic example is JFK's 1961 moonshot, to put a man on the moon before the decade was out. That's a BHAG. It's audacious, it's tangible, and it lit a fire under an entire nation. Visionary companies use BHAGs to create that exact same kind of focused energy. And the contrast here is it's stark. In the 1980s, GE's BAG was a powerful, easy-to-grasp call to action that everyone could rally behind. Westinghouse, its competitor, had a list of forgettable corporate buzzwords that inspired absolutely no one.
And this isn't just some nice-sounding theory. It gets staggering results. From 1926 to 1990, the visionary companies, the clock builders, they outperformed their direct competitors by a factor of 6, and they beat the general stock market by 15 times. That's just incredible.
So this whole framework really leaves us with a fundamental question, one we should all ask ourselves. Are we just building a business for today, or are we building an organization for tomorrow?
It all comes back to that central metaphor, doesn't it? The challenge from Built to Last is to shift our focus away from just being a great leader with a great idea and toward being a great architect. To stop just telling time and to start building a clock.
Because in the end, for a truly visionary builder, the ultimate creation isn't the first product, or the hit movie, or the revolutionary technology. The ultimate creation is the company itself, a clock that's truly built to tick for generations.